this is a video to show how to use the View application to create and maintain saved query definitions that are system type saved query definitions. So for example, Utah's ePHT has a series of saved definitions that they use on their topic pages. This is going to show how you would create those and maintain those in your local host environment and the proper way to manage those query definitions. So the first thing I need to show is my local environment here. I want to show you what a saved query definition looks like. I'm logged in as G@G, and this is just a local user file. I'll show you that file in just a minute. Let me just dissect the URL and tell you what's going on here. The last two segments of the URL show exactly what is supposed to be pulled in by the Java controller. So this segment right here shows which query definition file to use. The last segment shows the name of the query definition to use. Okay, so if I go in my environment, I'm going to pull up my Windows Explorer here, and I'm going to show you in my environment. For my environment, I have my content in a directory structure called content right here. So it's view, content, XML, query definition, and again, because of my URL, I'm going to look at the G@G file. So there's G@G in my query definition directory. I'm going to open up that file in an editor. And I'm going to show you all these definitions. One of the definitions is going to be called test. So this name of this one is called Garth. Don't care about that one. This definition is T2. This next definition name is birth, whatever. The next definition is named test. So you'll see here that I have some requests information. This query definition is not very long. It looks like it's pretty much stock. So it's running the birth, birth county, count, and I really haven't specified much else for this query definition. It's a pretty basic query definition. But that's the way that this works. Okay, so again, you have in your XML directory, you have something that's called query definition, and this doesn't have to correspond to your user, but if you want to make life easy for yourself to maintain these files, what I would recommend that you do is to set up a user that matches the name of the saved system query definitions that you want to have available to your users. So in this case, if we're going to use ePHT as an example, what we would want to do next is we would want to, not next, but what we want to do first is we want to create a user that's going to be called ePHT. So in my environment, my users are stored underneath the WebInf. So here's my web app, WebInf, XML, user. You'll notice that I have a G@G user right there. I'm going to get rid of this ePHT one, and we're going to create a new one. And the way you do that, you can grab any of these verified user XML files. You just simply copy and paste it. So I'm going to copy my G@G one. I'm going to say copy and paste. And I'm going to rename this to be ePHT because that's the name that I want my query definition file to be saved as to make things easy. And I'm going to go ahead and I just want to edit this thing to make sure my username, my user ID, and my password are something that I know. So I'm going to edit this file. And you'll notice here the ID is G@G because that's the file I copied. I'm going to change that ID to be ePHT to match my file name. My password I'm going to put as E. I'm going to save this file. And that's all there is to that. Now, one thing to make sure that you understand, you would never ever commit any user XML file into the repository. You would never ever put these out on a dev server or on your production server. You want to edit and maintain these query definitions in your local environment just like you do with all your other content. so that you can put this content into the repository and use the repository to do your content deployments with. Otherwise, if you maintain your query definitions on a dev or prod server, whenever your content gets deployed, those saved query definition files will be overwritten. They'll be blown away with your old content. So you want to make sure that you do this locally and put this into your content, commit it to the repository, and manage it as such. So I have this EPHT user, and let's go show you again in my query definitions. I do not have, and I'm going to get rid of this EPHT file right here. Let's get rid of this thing. I do not have an EPHT query definition out there. So now I can log in and log off as G, and I need to log in as EPHT. Again, my EPHT user has a username of EPHT. The password was E. I hit login, and I'm going to go show you that my definition list has nothing in it. No saved query definitions in here. So what I'll do is let's just go create one real quick. So I'll say explore datasets. We'll go to birth, count. We'll select some years. We will display by geographic area. We'll put a chart here as a horizontal bar. Don't care about a map, although we could put a map in there. Let's put a map in there. Let's say minimal, no layers, and submit this query. So the result's going to come back. I'm going to save. You'll see here I have a map, I have my chart, and I have my data. So now I'm going to say save the query definition. And again, let me bring up my Windows Explorer, and I'm in this query definition area. You'll see there's nothing in here called EPHT. That file will be created when I press save. I'm going to use the defaults here, birth, county, whatever. And I'm going to say save. As soon as I hit the save, I'm going to go show you that that file now got created. At this point, I have a saved query definition. I can actually edit this file, show you. It's already in my editor, but I'm going to bring it back up. And here's my name, and this definition, the name that I just gave it is birth. Anyway, that was just the default name, and this query definition now has that name. And I will now go show that that query definition actually can run. So again, I'll go to my data, my selections, and I'll now have it in my list. If I click on this, watch the URL. I'm going to see if I can grab it real quick. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to copy that so that when the request runs, I can paste that back in and run through this URL one more time. So the last segment is the name of the saved definition. This segment here is the query definition file, and that file exists in my XML query definition directory and EPHT. Now at this point, what I'd want to do is I would want to version this file and check it in so that when I do deployments, that this file will be deployed. So at this point, I would say I'd right click and I'd go to Tortoise and I'd say add. And you notice I got my little plus sign here. Now the next time I commit this file to the repository, that file will be out there, and it's available to be maintained using the Vue application. So all you have to do is add more queries. So we could do the same thing with a different data set. We could go to mortality, and we'll do the injury count one, and we'll select some years, and we'll just submit this one. It's going to process it. We're going to say save the query definition. We'll just take the defaults, hit save, and now if I go back to my editor, I still have that file loaded in there, and it says it's been modified, which it has, and we'll say reload it. So yes. So our saved query definition, there's our first one, the birth. Here's our second one, the mort, and you can see the name here is the name, just the default name, and our configuration, all that stuff. That's as easy as that. And one thing that you can do, just to demo this a little bit, I'm going to close this file so I don't have any conflicts. just to prove a point, you can go out here and let's say that that you didn't have an EPHT user, but you wanted to use a different file. You want to call it something else. So instead of calling this EPHT, let's call it junk. Okay. So I'm going to come back up here to my URL. I'm going to paste in that old URL. So again, the name of the file that I need is called junk. And by the way, if I hit enter on this one, let's just hit enter and I'll show you that this does not work. That does not work because the EPHT query definition file no longer exists. So now if I change that to junk, I hit enter, it'll go out and it'll run that definition. So there's nothing magical about the username and the saved query definition file being the same, other than it's a lot easier to maintain it if you have a username that is set up that matches your saved query definition file. It's just convenience. That's it. So you can use whatever account you want to maintain it. You can rename your files manually. That's a lot of work. I'd recommend that you keep the username and the saved query definition file one and the same, just to make things easy for you. Now what you do want to do is, if you do a new deployment, you're going to have to make sure you drag that that user definition file into your new deployment. One thing I need to show you too is for Utah. Utah has a little bit different directory structure. So let's go look at Utah's directory structure. So where these files would go is, here's the Utah IBIS-PH content in their XML query definition. You'll notice here we have a topic.xml file, which is our saved query definitions. So your saved query definitions for Utah would go in here. If you wanted to maintain this in the Utah environment, you would need to set up a user called topic, and you would put that in the webinf XML user directory. You'll notice that this is not committed to the repository. You would create a file in here called topic.xml, and again, you can just take one of these files here, say copy it, paste it, rename it to be topic.xml, and change the name of the username that you want to have to log in. So in this case, you can call it T if you wanted to make things easy, and if you want to go out here on your password, make that easy. Right now my password is G. We'll make that T as well, and now you just, as soon as I save this thing, you now have a user that will be able to maintain that topic XML file. You make changes to it. When you make changes to it, in your when you go into your Windows Explorer, the query definition topic file will then have a red check mark on it, and you'd know that that needs to be committed. It's as simple as that. Nothing magical going on, but that's how you connect the dots. Hope that was helpful.